Hi, John. Welcome to the We Chat Tech podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Look, firstly, it'd be great to give the listeners a little short intro on who John is. Yeah, who's John?
Whoever you need him to be for however much you want to pay. Hi, I'm John. I am recently promoted principal cloud engineer at Logicata. I am on brand swag, but you probably can't see that. Um, in terms of work, that's kind of me. I've been doing tech, AWS, more specifically DevOps, CI/CD, all that jazz, since before it was cool, which you can probably see by how thin my hair is and it's sort of receding. I spent a lot of time doing that for banks and finance shops and all the rest of it. Hence, again, the hairline, which weirdly, when I left banking, it stopped falling out. Must be some sort of correlation there,
Coincidence,
I
eh?
think. Sure, sure. Um, I've been working in that for a while now. I am more focused in the AWS space in the last 4, 5 years, I guess, maybe a little bit longer, which makes me feel very old. But as a kind of primary thing, it's been about 5 years I've been doing that. I am not going to talk about my certificates because they're boring, but I've got various AWS certs. I'm pro certified and all that jazz, which you sort of expect. I've I'm also an AWS community builder, which you may or may not have heard of the program. And for the listeners out there, that is a program of, I think there's about 3,000 of us globally. It's an application program, and it for people that are shown to help people get the exact tag word, learn and grow on AWS. That's the strap line. You apply to get in there. I applied in 2023 and got in back then. Been in there now for 3 years, coming up on renewal in March. And it's about doing things like this, but specifically within that platform, blogs, talks, all that kind of jazz. I'm also a user group lead in Brighton, which is my home city. I don't live in Brighton, but that's my home city. So I co-founded and co-run the AWS Brighton user group, which are tied to cities mostly. Mostly, you find ones that predate that requirement, like Thames Valley. It's not a city, but there's these days it's tied to cities. We run events every quarter, although next year we're going to every other month ish. It'll be 6 in a year, but not quite every 2 months. And we get speakers down, we do re-event recaps, we do workshops and various other bits and pieces um, in that kind of space, which is all good
Nice.
fun. It's the usual kind of tech meetup, beer and pizza, have a good chat, have
Yeah.
a bit of a nerd and a geek out.
I mean, we
Last event,
obviously do meetups as well on our side, so it's very much like that. But obviously, you do a lot of stuff in AWS, right?
mm,
That's your like Yeah, I mean, you don't want to sort of undersell yourself. That is what you do, right?
yes,
You, yeah, that's your bread
yeah,
and butter. But look, we'll
it's
definitely explore the community front and the AWS side more. This is obviously what the podcast is mainly going to be about. But before we do, it'd be good to understand a bit more about yourself, John, in the sense of where did it all begin? How did you get into tech, firstly?
that's yeah, a journey into careers is always a funny one. And I was sort of deeply unqualified to answer it because I've just gone after the shiny thing. And it seems to have worked so far. I've just gone after what I thought looked interesting at the time. So I knew I wanted to work with computers and in tech from reasonably young, right? I'm a millennial. I grew up with a PlayStation, like the first one. I'm that
Mm.
kind of age, which makes me feel really old and really not at the same time because I didn't own a SNES. Right? I'm not SNES old, but I'm PlayStation old.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that. Kind of did it through school and then through college and then into university, fell into a kind of a graduate thing that farmed you out as graduate consultants, paid you very little and charged a lot for your time. Like, here's our expert consultants that we've trained for 3 months. Okay. And just kind of rolled from there. I sort of, as I say, I started in a bank for that consultancy. That was their shtick. And that was in build and release engineering and environments management, which is incredibly dull and dreary, but it's these days is what we'd call DevOps because it was that before it was called that. And I just sort of chased the shiny, interesting thing. They played with private cloud for a bit. I went, oh, that looks cool. That saves me shouting at sysadmins and DBAs for things. Brilliant, I can do it myself. Went to London Stock Exchange, specifically FTSE, did more of the same, and then they started getting into AWS, and I went, that's even better because it's just it's there and I can just consume it. Went to a cloud consultancy and then just kind of bimbled around from consulting to a permy job to consulting to a permy job to now I'm back in consulting land.
Yeah, I think, do you know what it is? I think it's back then. I think it was like you said, because it was an it's more of a, just a buzzword, I guess. When you're in that space, it's everyone was trying to sort of do it, but they didn't really know what they were doing. They're just still sort of improvising. I feel like you could just sort of jump around and do what's interesting. I feel like it's a lot different now. I feel like people want an arm and a leg before you move. So it
Yeah,
gets
I was
yeah,
having this conversation last night at an event that a local tech accelerator put on, one of their kind of Christmas events that we work with for our user group. And he was talking about, because they do training and boot camps and stuff for web developers and AI and this and that and the others. Could we do a cloud one? Yeah, I can help you sort a cloud one out if that's what you want to sort of get into. But I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as a junior DevOps engineer. Like that job
that's it.
exists, there's a title for it, but you have to have learned so much. You're immediately a mid-level because you
Yeah.
have to know so much about so many things. You can't genuinely be a junior at it.
Yeah, do you know, we had so many conversations like this as well, and it seems like there's just a lack of opportunities for even just to break into the industry. We always say like, what is the best way to get into cloud or DevOps is probably do something like as a byproduct of DevOps. So, you know, can you do like some sysadmin stuff with a bit of DevOps? Can you do a bit of, you know, like if you're in software engineering, can you do some sort of DevOpsy processes involved in there just to get some experience, because it's so difficult to break into DevOps or cloud or anything like that, because literally like everybody wants a lot
Yeah, you
before
look at a
you
mid-level.
start. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous. It's
you look
ridiculous.
at a mid-level spec these days, and it's ridiculous, right? I'm
Yeah,
recently promoted, as I say, principal engineer at a firm called Logicata, and I can do the plug for them later because I probably should tell you who I work for. Like they pay my
absolutely.
salary. Um, but yeah, the mid-level kind of specs that you see is: do you know Kubernetes? Well, you don't need that, but okay, sure. Do you know Rust and Go and Python and Bash and AWS and GCP? And what?
Everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything under the sun, honestly. Look,
Yeah,
before
in
we
truth, all
obviously
you do
dive
is write Bash scripts and YAML.
yeah, well, there you go. Before we dive into the AWS front, what do you like doing, I guess, outside of tech? I know we discussed a little bit about this, and I guess you can tell everyone how you got on.
Yes, so outside of tech, I hurt myself in creative ways. No, I am something of a keen martial artist. I did it as a kid, and I've recently got back into karate. I was at our national tournament. So for the uninitiated, there's something like 70 different sub styles of karate. There's not just one.
Yeah.
And I do GKR, which is a specific style, came around in the 80s, and it's a blend of a couple of other styles. And it's good fun. We recently had our national tournament, which for me is up in Sheffield. It's in Sheffield, but for me that's up. And I won my events, both of them. So
No
I came away
way.
with, yeah, so I
There
came
you
away with
go.
two gold
Congrats.
medals. Thank you very much. I came away with two gold medals and technically a national championship and a very badly pulled calf muscle.
It was worth it though. It
Worth
was
it.
worth it because you
Now,
got the two gold medals. There you go.
yeah, no, I pulled the muscle before the tournament, and because tournament was coming up, I'm just no, I just got to push through, power through, keep going, keep going. Kept on the the anti-inflammatories and all the rest of it. Did that, won my medals. First training back afterwards, couldn't walk. Basically, couldn't
No.
walk because I'd done it that badly, and I'd just been ignoring it.
Do you know what it
So,
is? When you get to the stage as well, it becomes hard, doesn't it, to do anything sort of physical. Like, I think when we first spoke as well, I said I play futsal, and I mean I'm in my 30s now as well. So honestly, it's anytime like I have a game or something, the day after I can't walk. I'm a cripple. I have to just sit in my chair and makes me just contemplate life.
mm,
But at least you won. That's what matters.
yes,
At
yes.
least
And
you
I was
won.
the old guy in my category as well because they break us out into categories because it would be very unfair of me to spar with someone in their 60s or 70s. And
Yeah.
equally, it'd be very unfair of me to spar with a child or
Yeah.
someone that massively outranks me because, I'm not a black belt. I've only been doing this form of karate for 7 or 8 months. So I'm sort of a yellow belt, nearly an orange belt, which is on the lower end. So it'd be very unfair of me to find a black belt. So
Yeah.
they break us out into categories, right? But because I'm 34, the category is 18 to 34. It's a bizarrely wide one,
Yeah.
but there's not a lot of people in it. It's why it's quite wide. So I was the old guy fighting a bunch of 20-year-olds and sparring with a bunch of 20-year-olds. They
Yeah,
were all deeply unhappy to lose to an old guy.
experienced. That's what we call it. How long does it take to get to gold out of interest? Because I've never like I don't know. I've never sort of known. I guess does it take a long time?
It can. It depends on what you're doing, right? Because different martial arts will play this differently because you throw a stick and you'll find six of them, right? So they'll run it differently. I can't comment on those, but mine has minimum time requirements, minimum class requirements. You have to
Okay.
know certain things, certain movements, certain patterns, certain forms. And the higher up you get, the better at those basic forms you have to get, and the more advanced forms you have to know, and the more advanced kata, was basically a demonstration that you have to know as well.
Yeah.
So I am, as I say, I've been doing it for about 7 months in this particular format, and I've graded about as quickly as you can within my format. Um, to get to a black belt level, it typically takes about 10 years, something like that,
Wow.
of consistent training. Yeah, it's
That's
about 10
commitment.
years.
That is commitment. Yeah, yeah. So you see from yourself, obviously, you've you obviously do karate now as like a I guess as a hobby in that sense, and you've done other things I guess in the past as well. To I guess it's like a switch right for yourself to use as a an opportunity to I guess switch off and stay balanced because obviously you work in a very stressful environment, like you said, to say, you know, you worked in fintechs and you know all the jazz, and even to say where you work now, I guess it is still a stressful environment. Just
Yeah.
how tech is, right? Um, so like, how do you use hobbies like I guess like karate to like switch off or I guess
Yeah,
stay balanced in that front? Yeah,
yeah,
it's not really
switching off
switching
is
off
probably.
because it's still
I mean, it isn't. It isn't. It's an interesting choice of word, and it's kind of right
yeah,
because it's one of the few things. Sport generally is good for this. I don't think it matters particularly which one. Maybe with the exception of weightlifting, because I used to do quite a bit of that as well, and that was just pick weight up, wait for 3 minutes. Okay.
yeah,
It's but the more intense sort of sports are good for switching off the thinking part of your brain, if that makes sense. Because when I'm
yeah.
in when I'm in the dojo, when I'm training, I am just there. I'm not anywhere else. I am right there for the hour and a half that I'm doing that. I've not got a problem churning over in the back of my head because I've got someone who he's very experienced shouting at me in Japanese. That tends to focus the mind a touch.
It's good that you don't understand what you're saying.
No, no, I know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. I know what they're saying.
Good stuff. Good
But
stuff.
yeah, loud Japanese tends to focus the mind.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right, let's dive into, I guess, the AWS side of things and I guess more on the community builder front,
Mhm.
because I think, you know, I think a lot of people will find that interesting as well. So I guess, firstly, what made you want to become an AWS community builder? Because I know you've, like you said, you've sort of been from that on-prem, you went to the cloud, you was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Obviously, you do a lot of stuff for the community. Um, what made you want to become, I guess, what you're doing right now?
It's I didn't know the program existed until a couple of months before I was accepted into it because my boss was a community builder and said you should apply for this too. So there wasn't really a driver for I want to be a community builder. There was a I'm doing things anyway.
Yeah.
There's a program for people like me that do these sorts of things. Maybe I should just apply and they let me in. I still think it was a mistake, but they let me in and then they kept me in. So I must be doing something right. Because I was doing we have our own podcast, which I will plug. It's the Logicast AWS News podcast, and we record more or less weekly. I think we've done 45 episodes this year or something, so getting on for weekly. We were doing that because I wanted to do that because I'm a bearded man in tech. Of course, I have a podcast. Right? That's that's the standard joke, isn't it? We were doing that, and we wanted to do that. One, it's a little bit marketing because it is. It's a marketing thing because we do. I don't like the term, but thought leadership. We get on the air and talk about stuff with a guest, and it shows that we know what we're talking about, which is good
Mhm.
for clients to see that we know what we're talking about. It humanizes us as well because if you look at lots of, I'm not going to name any particular names, but if you look at lots of big consulting firms. They're just this machine, and you
Yeah.
can't penetrate the veil. Because we're such a small shop, we have to humanize ourselves. So people buy from people.
Yeah.
Come meet some of the people. It's not just faces on a website, it's personality and talking to people. So we were doing that anyway. I've also got a history of writing blogs and things like that. I've written a handful of them, less recently because podcasts and things takes a lot of my time. But I've written things like, it sounds really dull, but glossary of terms for AWS, because you think, if you've never heard of Lambda, you think, that's a Greek letter, isn't it?
Mm.
Is a Python function? Is it like, what is that? Function as a service. That's where function comes. There you go. That's how that sort of comes about. And I've done lots of those, handfuls of those, because there's 200 plus services. Like, you could go for a while writing those at 30 a go. And other things on, I built a thing. Here's what I built and how I did it, or here's when you should use such and such a service. And I've written a few of those as well, and was told about the program and went, oh, that kind of aligns quite nicely, because learning and growing on the platform. Okay, yes, it's always a little bit self-serving because you put your own name out there and you get kind of recognition for it, get invited to do things like this, and that's always good stuff. But then equally, you don't do it for that. That's like a fringe
Mm.
benefit. It's I'm putting things out there into the ether because I think they might help people.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, I applied and got in.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had any standout moments, I guess, throughout the time you've been in the sort of AWS community that
Yeah, a
you've
couple.
thought of? Yeah.
Yeah, a couple. So the first one is I went to reInvent last year. Didn't go this year because it's still jolly expensive, but that whole experience was just phenomenal. Which, again, for the uninitiated, reInvent is Amazon AWS's annual tech conference for a week in Vegas, and it is exactly as full on as you can possibly imagine. Like, if you work in and around tech and cloud, you've probably heard of it, and it is as mad as you can possibly imagine it to be. Parties every night. You basically don't have to feed yourself. The conference feeds you breakfast and lunch, and then events in the evening for vendors and sponsors and kind of all the rest of it. You don't have to really worry about that sort of thing, but you will spend the entire week drunk or hungover if you do it right or wrong, depending on your view. So that was phenomenal. That was amazing. The other one is much more recently this year, off the back of a bit of recognition I've been getting and just applying for things to an extent. I've spoken at a couple of really major conferences. So I was on the community stage at the London Summit this year, which was great as well, because they don't do a closing keynote at the summit, but I was kind of the last one on that stage for the day, and that was phenomenal, proper big conference. And then I spoke again at AWS North Community Conference in Newcastle in October this year, which is another, again, decent sized stage, middle of the day slot, much more challenging. So it's kind of those sorts of things. It's opened doors for me, as it were. I've kind of gotten in through shouting into the void and writing blogs, and then it's gotten me on some fairly big stages from there, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, to be fair, I guess with the things that you do as well, it helps you to stay like up to date with everything as well. It's so like just everything within AWS as well as like AI and just tech in general. It's so evolving. I guess when you're part of a community, you know when I guess the latest stuff are out or what's changing. You're not hiding behind the rock. I guess in that sense, you're very much you know, sort of out there and seeing what's evolving, what you can use, what you can adapt. As you said, you work for a consultancy now, right? And they're smaller, so in that part, it's very much how you can do things better than the big giants that are doing everything in sort of very normal manner, I guess, in that sense. So let's dive a little bit more into what you do now, then, I guess, and you can, I guess, give the guests a little bit more of a um, I guess, explanation into what you do in the sense of your day to day and what your company do. I guess
Yeah,
you can promote your company a little bit.
got to get the plug in there. Got to be done.
Yeah,
So I am principal cloud engineer at a consulting firm. I call it a consulting firm, but we're consulting in managed services called Logicata, which I'm sure if there's show notes for this, we can plug them somewhere. What we do is professional services and managed services within the AWS cloud, pretty much exclusively. Um, we have a number of product lines, the names of which I'm not going to drop because they don't really make any sense, but we primarily work with existing AWS customers or people that want to get into AWS to run their workloads. Because we're a partner, AWS have a massive partner program. There's, I don't know, tens of thousands of partners. We are an advanced partner. We've recently passed an operations competency, and our page is starting to kind of fill up with badges. What we do is we take, on the existing workload managed services side of things, we take things that customers have already put into the cloud, and it's running, it's doing what it needs to, it's making the money, it's serving its purpose, but it was probably built by a developer. And a developer has a certain skill set, and they've gotten so far with some of the tooling that's available, but it's not as performant as it could be, or it's not as efficient as it could be, or it's not as cost effective as it could be, or it's not as secure as it could be, or it's running in, public servers, or it's just on a server somewhere and it's not backed up properly and it's not compliant with standards. And maybe the company has recently gone through something like a Cyber Essentials and failed it, or ISO 27001 and is not doing particularly well on this, that, or the other. And we come along, we help people run those workloads long term. So we come along, we help secure them, we help with things like backups and compliance with security standards. So things like CIS, which is Center for Internet Security, foundational services, foundational security standards from AWS, those sorts of things. And we help people comply with those. We also do the 24/7 monitoring piece. So I will, as part of the rota with the rest of my team, I will get up in the night if something goes bang, and that happens occasionally, but we do a lot of work with our customers to make sure that doesn't go bang. So because we're on the hook for it going bang, we work very hard to make it not go bang, if that kind of makes sense. And we do things like cost optimizations and that kind of thing as well that you'd expect, or FinOps, as I think it's called these days.
Yeah. Well, what's the common things would you say that are what do you see that's mostly, I guess, commonly wrong with companies where you go
Overspending.
in to help in that sense?
Yeah,
Really?
it's overspending, weirdly, because there's a number of ways to procure compute and database and all the rest of it within AWS. The most expensive way is on demand, as they call it, which is make thing in console or through, CloudFormation or whatever, and pay for it. That's the most expensive way of doing it. And people don't necessarily know that other ways of paying for it exist, because you can do payment commitments effectively. I'm not going to go into them in specifics, but you can commit to certain things and save anything up to about 35% on that kind of line item. Not on the whole bill, but it's on that line item, and you can save a third on that, and people don't know they exist. And there's certain other things. If you slightly re-architect how your app works, you can use essentially spare capacity that's kicking around, which AWS again make available for up to 70% less, like silly big discounts for just knowing these things exist and being able to use them properly. So that's probably the lowest hanging fruit that we find is wrong, followed by, are you backing things up? Don't know, maybe. Again, the platform is quite good, certainly within data storage tiers, databases and what have you, at making sure that there's a level of backups on automatically. You have to work hard to turn them off. But
Yeah.
outside of that, it's, I don't know, I can't prove it. My auditor would very much like to know. And we find that kind of thing semi-regularly as well.
It almost seems like it's a little bit of, I guess, educating, probably in manners
Yeah,
where,
you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, that's it, 100%. From your side, I mean, I know you obviously you've worked in AWS for a long time now, and obviously, like you said, you're multi-certified, and you touch upon all sorts of languages and I guess technologies within services, sorry, within AWS. I guess what's popping right now in AWS? What's exciting? What's out there
Can you guess
that's
what I'm
trending?
about to say? I'm sure you can guess.
Well, it's going to be AI, right?
It's AI.
It has to be AI.
It's AI. Yeah. I don't know if you watched the CEO keynote on from reInvent last week, because they stream it as well as it being live. And in previous years, they're a couple of hours and they're a sight to behold. But in previous years, you had kind of 10 or 15 minutes on this, that, or the other, and then it'd be service announcement, few minutes, service announcement, few minutes, case study, service announcement, few minutes. This year, it was 2 hours of talking about AI and AI case
No way.
studies, and 10 minutes against a basketball shot clock on announces in everything else. There was like 30 in 10 minutes because it was just all AI, AI, AI.
Yeah.
But AI it's hot. It's going to be hot forever, I think, because it can't not be. The pace of development is just obscene, is the only way I can sort of term it. So if you look at, let's take code assistants for an example, and I'm a big fan of these. I wasn't until about 4 months ago, and then I had to play with them and went, okay, then I now write, I don't know, maybe 20% of my own code, and the machine does the rest of it for me faster and better than I can do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, But if you look at that as an example, a year ago, 2 years ago, Code Whisperer was a thing. It was awful,
Yeah.
utterly terrible. I don't work for AWS, so I can be incredibly critical of them. It was hot garbage. It kind of did what it said on the tin, but what it said on the tin was overselling what it did. Right? It could make test data and maybe make suggestions about what you could possibly do to improve, and that was kind of about the size of it. Right? Now, as an example, using Kiro, which is Amazon's specific agentic coding IDE, which go use it. It's fantastic. If you need to do it, just go use it. For 4 hours of my life and about $4 in AI credit, I completely redeveloped my personal website, and I'm not a web developer. Right? I don't actually know what it's doing. I know how it's doing it, but I don't know Bootstrap. I don't know. I roughly understand how Jekyll works, but I don't know all of the tools and technologies that I'm using. And in an evening and £4 worth of credits, I've got something that looks reasonably slick.
Mm.
So it's that AI and AI
What's the
services.
accuracy in them like in that sort of, I guess, model, like in the sense of we've had some conversations before as well, and it's very much like how you implement AI in your tech force, and I guess it's very much like you can't be relying on it in that sense. You still have to overlook it because it's still going to make mistakes. And to be fair, we've had a few, like, to be fair, it's quite funny. Like we've we've used some other services, and it makes mistakes. You can tell it's a mistake. You say, "Oh, you've made a mistake," and it says, "Oh yeah, I know I made a mistake." So it's still obviously got some errors in it. So what would you say the sort of error rate is in that, and overlooking
I,
that, I guess, yeah.
I don't think that's a fair question because that's the wrong way of using it. So
Mm,
the way you're meant to use, Kiro is great for this, and I'm going to shill for it because I think it's fantastic. And for $20 a month, dollars, not
yeah,
pounds, it's on an average tech salary. That's a rounding error. Just go pay for it, right? Um, the way it's designed to work, it has vibe code mode, which I hate the term, it just sounds so wrong, but it has that, which is just, quick changes, whatever, can make a report, fine. It also has spec driven mode. So you work with it to make a specification and then a design and then a task list, and it will write tests. And that gets the error rate very, very low because
yeah,
it's writing its own tests. It basically does TDD, right? Which is a thing that all developers, and I'm not a developer and I never was one, but all developers should know what TDD is and should have at least worked that way once or twice. It will write a load of tests first, and then it will write a load of code, and then it will run its own tests against itself. And that gets its error rate very, very low.
yeah. Do you
It
know,
doesn't,
it's funny because I think the one that I was talking about, they actually use Azure, right? So I think that's the comparison, right? So I think from their point of view, I think they had it implemented within their sort of environment, and yeah, we're still throwing out. I think you said like 20%, which is I think that's still. I mean, it's reasonable. I mean, if you're automating everything and whatnot, but you couldn't, like. I guess again, going back to the point where I guess you still have to oversee it, you still have to overlook it, but I feel like you can't be dependent on it in a sense of like a commercial environment. You can't say, right, this is going to go live, like,
no, I wouldn't vibe
yeah,
code a production application at this point. I probably wouldn't even spec code a production application at this point. My personal profile is just, it's 4 pages of HTML, right? It's not,
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
boring.
it's in, I don't even know what it's in. It's in Ruby or some such because it's Jekyll, but it's not massively complicated. Doesn't need to be terribly efficient. It's all static generated. Pages get rendered. Job done. Some of the other stuff I've done with it in things like big Terraform refactoring or what have you. The way you use that is very important. You don't just go do the thing. Thanks very much. Put it live. It's go through the task list, say, right, do the first one. It does the first one. Go and review it. You are sitting there, treat it like a junior developer,
Yeah,
effectively, and
yeah,
you are reviewing everything it does at every single stage. And every once in a while, it will go and do something a little bit silly. The example I like to use for this within the Terraform space is AWS tell you not to do things in a certain way. You can do it, but it's no longer considered best practice, like inline permissions. It's the same as putting your CSS in your HTML file, right? Don't do that. You can, it'll work, but don't do it. It loves to do that sort of thing. It loves to do inlines because it can see it all in the one place. Don't do that. And you tell it not to do, it'll do that. And then you tell it, you shouldn't have done that. Best practice is not to do that. And then it go, oh yes, of course it is. Sorry. And then it'll go and fix itself. So it's not a case of push button, machine spits out code that you can just go live with. It's a case of push button, let it do that little chunk of work, review what it's done, run it through your existing linting tooling, your code quality scans, and all those sorts of things, because it doesn't replace that. It
Yeah,
augments it, doesn't replace it. Rinse and repeat for every task, right? It will
yeah,
occasionally put out code that I'm a big fan of SonarQube, but other linters and code quality tools exist. I'm a big fan of that, and I will run it through that as well, and Sonar will go, no, that's a bit silly. That's too complicated. That's not technically secure. And I've looked at it and gone, oh yeah, so it's not, because it spat out 4,000 lines of code in an hour. Like that's more than I could do. It's done weeks
yeah.
worth of work, but it's also created weeks worth of technical debt if you're not on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I guess from your side, I know you mentioned it so a little bit already in the sense of you see AI as the future, I guess. Maybe it's particularly in AWS. Where do you see it in, say, 5 to 10 years or so? Because it's so like that's such a interesting one, right? Because it makes you think like where it's just like a couple years ago, like we said, it was terrible, right? Now it's like wow. So where could it be in 5 to 10 years? And before you do that as well, I watched a video as well. Uh, it was a comparison between how AI was again. It was I think it was a few years ago, and it was a difference between like AI video comparison in that sense of how they did the imagery and whatnot. And 2 years ago, honestly, it looked like one of the worst things I've ever watched. Like it was so bad. But now it genuinely looks like real, right? And it's come so far. So where could it be in, say, 5 years or 10 years?
Honestly, that's too far out to make a prediction on something that's moving this quickly
Yeah.
because, a year ago to now is unrecognizable. 6 months ago to now, you can sort of see the trajectory, but it's phenomenal how quickly it's progressing. I would be, I don't like making future predictions. I'm not a futurist. I'm an engineer. I sit very
Yeah.
firmly in the world of reality and what I can do right now. I'm not a futurist.
Yeah.
If you were to force me to do it, and you can't because you're over there, not over here, but if you were to force me to do it, it would be I just see an acceleration of trends, right? In terms of we're getting to the point now where if you go and look at ChatGPT, it's saying you can do all of your holiday shopping through ChatGPT. And I think Walmart have recently announced an integration where GPT can actually go and do all of its shopping with Walmart directly using its APIs, and you just get the outputs from the other end and your stuff appears. I think that's going to become more and more pervasive. I don't know how I feel about that because that feels very giving control over to something, and I don't know that I like that. But I think we're going to see much more integration outside of the tech space with things like consumer shopping, consumer finance, businesses doing things that aren't necessarily direct code creation that AI is making better and easier and faster. I also think AI, it has the risk, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, of killing these no code platforms that kind of exist.
Mm.
Because again, if you're unfamiliar, Honeycode, I think, is one of them, and there's a few others out there that are no and low code systems. And the idea is a non or semi-technical person can make something without needing a developer, right? A good example again is things like your WordPress editors. You go on WordPress.com and you can have a vaguely decent looking website in a few hours because you've moved some boxes around, you've used their editor
Yeah.
website. You haven't made any code, but if you wanted to, you can put HTML blocks in, you can put CSS blocks in, and you can make some scripts and kind of do stuff that way. And then people integrate things on top of that with plugins or what have you, and those are made by actual developers. Cool. That's kind of a no low code platform. I don't see them going away, but I see AI making them much less relevant to most people because you just need to know how to ask for what you want and how
Yeah.
to test it. And that's not even being a professional tester, right? Once upon a time, I was a QA tester because I must have done something horrible in a past life. And just knowing how to check for what you want rather than it should be like this because I expect it to be. No, go and actually look at it and tell the machine that it's broken and tell it, no, that contrasts naff, or those links are all dead, or, the navigation doesn't work properly, those kinds of things, and just feeding that back in. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be a professional tester. You don't need teams of people to do things that look reasonably good now. So I think it's going to make the no and low code platforms less relevant going forward.
Yeah. I think there's have you heard of Lovable
Yes.
as one of them? I mean, like that's I guess an example, right, of that's purely sort of AI generated in that sense, where you're just given commands and it literally forms your website, for instance, if you wanted to, by just giving commands, and you constantly, I guess, churning over what needs to be changed or whatnot. And again, you don't need no experience in that sense. Like, you don't need no development knowledge or anything. All you're saying is, I want this. The only thing obviously it lacks is security side of things, because it doesn't really provide you that. But I guess that's where I guess you might need some engineering experience on that. I guess following on from that, I was going to ask you what you think maybe like some of the problems with AI, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? A lot
No.
of people think it's like God's gift. Don't get me wrong, it is very good, and people do use it on. Everyone uses it differently, and I know you probably use it on the day to day as well as your work side of things. What do you think some of the problems are, I guess, with AI?
It's a tool for a job, as you say. It's not a silver bullet. It's not magic. It's a tool for a job. Um, there's a handful of problems out there, specifically within the code assistant space. You might have heard of a few of these. Replit is the best one, where it accidentally deleted someone's entire production database and then lied to them about it. Yeah, that was a fun one.
That's great.
Um, I don't know if that's an AI problem or a user problem, and this is part of the challenge, because this is the challenge in tech generally, right? You can't disentangle the thing from how people use the thing. Yeah, I try to make my thing foolproof, but better fools keep coming along. I think that's the saying, something like that. God keeps making better idiots. I think that's the line. Um, and I think that is part of the challenge, is people go, this is magic, this is witchcraft, this is doing everything for me, this is great, this is perfect, I don't have to think anymore. And they're handing over thinking to the machine. And that's, there was lots of movies about not doing that. Maybe watch a few of them, don't do that. That's part of it. And the other part of it is, I reckon we're going to end up in some sort of tiered society. Maybe that's a little bit doom and gloom and dramatic, but of people that have gotten on the bus, waterboarded the Kool-Aid, as my friend Brian Tarbox likes to say, and people that have gone, no, I don't like this, and have just been completely left behind.
Mm. I think, yeah. I feel like, yeah, it's almost like if you don't, I guess if you don't use it, you almost like, yeah, like you're saying, you sort of become irrelevant in that way. And
Tech
I,
is quite bad for that generally, right?
it
Because
is, it is.
AI is just it's a force accelerator for this sort of thing, but it moves quickly in and of its own right. Um, I discounted code assistants a year ago, came back to them 9 months ago, and went, "What have I been missing?" Because it
Yeah,
moved that far that quickly. But tech generally does that. If you work in tech, you've sort of committed to learning all the time.
yeah, for sure. I was going to say then, from your side, I mean, how much of your do you implement, I guess, AI into sort of the solutions that you provide to your clients at Logicata?
Um,
Is that
not,
part of it, or is it
I
more
mean,
sort
it
of other
can be,
services
but
that you
it's,
push?
yeah, no, not so much. It can be, but me personally, and we as a firm are very tool for a job. We're not going to try and shoehorn something in just because it's got the buzzword in. Kubernetes is great for that. We put Kubernetes in. Mate, you're running one container. You don't need that. For,
Yeah, yeah.
tool for a job sort of territory. A lot of our clients are, how can I word this whilst being polite? They are more of the older style of internet sort of thing. They're e-commerce, they're transactional, or it's marketing sites, or it's a brochure site that then
But more
their
like
transaction happens.
legacy sort of systems, or
No,
would
I
you say
don't like the legacy is a dirty word.
it
Legacy
is?
is a dirty word because it implies that it's old and useless and rubbish, and it's not, because it's the thing that's still making everyone all of their money. These things are still
Yeah,
doing what they're meant to. They're just not necessarily new shiny things, right? And they look great. I mean, we support a number of e-commerce platforms, and e-commerce, a lot of it is having AI rammed down people's throats. Sorry, no, I don't want that. I want to buy the thing that I came to you for. I don't want you to ram AI recommendations down my throat. I know what I want.
yeah,
So we have a lot of that. We have a handful of other bits and pieces that do things not e-commerce, but it's supporting a business. So it's an internal tool that they use and maintain, or it's something public facing, but their transaction value is so high it happens off platform, that kind of deal. So we haven't seen huge amounts of need for implementing. We need an AI project
Yeah.
beyond that kind of nonsense statement of we need an AI project because we need an AI project. That's a solution looking for a problem, and we deal with problems that exist.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you want it to replace too many of, I guess, your services as well, because end of the day, that's where you make your money, right? But I think I think with a lot of um, I guess I don't want to say issues, but I mean, I know you said like one of the biggest thing is overspending for a lot of these companies, and um, with a lot of people where we spoke before, is over engineering comes into question, and overcomplicating a quite a simple solution, right? So when you sort of mention Kubernetes, like, do you need Kubernetes, right? Do you really need it? I know it's everyone wants Kubernetes, everyone talks about it, but for a small company, do you need it? Is it required? Is there a better way of doing that sort of things? So I guess in with the companies that you work for, is Kubernetes still a very sort of relevant
Yes and
area,
no.
I
Yes
guess?
and no. I like to bash it because again, it's rage baiting, and rage bait is good for engagement. Um, Kubernetes is an easy horse to beat, right? And that's no shade to the maintainers and the program itself. They do phenomenal work for very little recognition. They put massive amounts of their own sort of time and money and effort into it, blood, sweat, and tears, and all the rest of it. Lots of respect to the maintainers of that program. But most people don't need it. Genuinely, most people don't need it, right? It's Kubernetes is it's one of those things, but lots of other things exist that fall into this kind of trap of you ain't gonna need it. It's one of those old sort of software engineering paradigms. Keep it simple, stupid. You ain't gonna need it. Don't repeat yourself. All those sorts of because all software engineers are rude generally,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
all of the acronyms are quite rude. By and large, it's over-engineered, as you say. You ain't going to need it, so don't use it. For a lot of what I deal with, I will recommend ECS rather than
yeah,
EKS because it's just managed Docker. You don't need all the other Kubernetes stuff. You don't need all the load balancing, all of this and all of that, and all the blue greens and all the rest of it because you're running one container, you're running two or three containers. Oh, you actually do need blue green. Cool. There's a slightly easier way of doing that. ECS will do it for you. You don't need Argo CD for this. Much as I
yeah.
like it, it's a really cool platform. You don't need it.
Yeah, that's it. I think, yeah, I feel like people, again, I guess it's good from your perspective, because I feel like a lot of people still need that education part that we discussed, because it is very much I still think it's still very much a common issue in that sense. I mean, we work with a lot of small companies, and like, I mean, their environments ain't huge, and it is very cost effective. It is overcomplicated, and I guess if you're hiring engineers, and it's not the most pleasant environment to be in when you're coming in, and it's like, well, what the hell's going on here? Like, it's way too much for what's needed. I think simplicity is definitely I guess the best way to sort of I guess approach more of a startup to sort of scale up phase.
Yeah.
Even though like you might want all the fancy tech, but do you need it? Probably not. Yeah.
Again,
Well,
it's a solution looking for a problem in a lot of cases, or, CTO or engineer type has gone, I want to use this because I want to learn it.
yeah, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Look, moving on from this, I guess, where do you see, I guess, cloud roles and sort of cloud culture heading in sort of the next few years, I guess? Where do you, because obviously you're very much submerged into the cloud engineering. What's next, I guess, for that? What's your thoughts?
You can't get away from needing to understand architecture is the thing. There's a in oldie worldy setups, right? You had your architect team, your architect, your team of architects, and they sat off in their own little silo and they produced the diagrams and the designs and all the rest of it. And then they worked with the product team to work out that's what they wanted, and then they gave it to the engineering team, the development team, who went and built the thing. Cool. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist anymore. There is no, I'm an architect. Yes, you can have a job of a cloud architect. If you can't write a bit of cloud formation, if you can't write a bit of Python, you're no good to me. You need to be able to do this, the polyglot engineer sort of concept. This is the T-shaped engineer. You could be really good at one thing, but you need to be kind of okay at almost everything, right? And that's only going to increase with rise of things like AI coding assistants, which I know I keep going on about them, but what it's going to do is it's going to turn that on its head a little bit. You don't need to be a developer with kind of an architect concept. You need to be more architectural with sort of developer concepts, if that makes sense. There's still going to be a need for proper old-fashioned developers because I'm not writing Java. You couldn't pay me enough, but that needs to be done still, right? But there will be more of this blend of you're not an architect, you're not a cloud engineer, you're not a developer, you're kind of all three of these things because the machine is doing lots of the stuff that you'd get junior mid-level engineers to do for you.
Yeah,
So the roles are going to become just much more blurry. The lines are going to be very blurred, and I don't know that there's going to be so much of a junior engineering market in the medium term. Longer
yeah,
term, that's going to come and bite the industry very hard because there's not going to be talent coming through that's starting to learn and understand these things. And particularly with the junior and mid-level engineers not having to go through the pain and the trenches of doing things themselves and being woken up by mal-configured Redis clusters at 4 a.m. because the machine just got it right for you. We're going to suffer with that as an industry in the longer term, but short to medium term, it's going to become harder. It's already hard, but even harder for junior to mid-level engineers to kind of get
yeah,
into the industry and progress.
for sure. I think it'll put more pressure as well on the engineers that are there already as well, because I feel like it's more sort of more than necessary like mentoring will be needed as well, especially if you have to I guess hire people that don't have, I guess, experience in certain areas like we just discussed. Um, Look, AWS is obviously like the biggest cloud provider, right? Biggest community. Do you think that people are doing enough in the community? Do you think that like obviously like there is a lot of people that are doing a lot of stuff in the community? I mean, honestly, they're doing some great stuff, but obviously as it's such a widespread, I guess, technology, right? Like, do you think that everyone's? Do you think there should be more that people are should be sort of contributing towards
Um,
helping people, or do you think
yeah,
it's
I don't
pushing in the right
know.
direction?
I don't know. I'd like to see more support from AWS for their own community. They support us fantastically within the community programs, and then every so often you run into someone else that works at the firm. They've got no idea it exists, which
Mm.
is okay, fine. It employs 500,000 people. That sort of makes sense. But I don't want to go and talk to a technical account manager and say, I'm a community builder and a user group lead, and they go, "What's that?" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't want to have that conversation. I want them to just kind of know what those things are, not necessarily who I am because I'm not that egotistical, but the concept that user groups exist and that we
yeah,
might want to get people down and talk to them and that there's a friendly audience and all that kind of thing. Cool. The other side of things is, do I think people should be doing more for the community? I mean, yes, always. I can't fault the people that are already in these programs because they've already been kind of vetted and put through the ringer and they're on the other side of the fence, as it were. It's not a fence, it's very much just like a see-through bit of plastic, but you've kind of already proved that you're doing stuff for the community. I'd like more people rather than more things from the people,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
I'd love people to be communicating, contributing back and communicating with people and doing talks and all the rest of it, to the extent that, as I say, I co-founded the user group in part because I wanted a platform for more people in my local area to come and do it, because there was a user group up in London that still exists. It's great. I go up there every so often. I didn't want to have to go up to London for good quality tech talks, and that can be quite of a barrier for people, particularly in the sort of the Brighton area, which may not have the funds to go up there. They might not have the time to go up there. We'll run a user group down our way, and then we've got people that absolutely would not have gone up there to go and deliver a talk to come and speak at our one. We've had it the other way where they've come down from London, which is
yeah.
great as well because it's good talent that's well known on the speaking circuit has come down and spoken to our little audience, which is, it's always nice because people haven't had to go and do things and be in places. But um, I think my video's just died on me,
I
which is
think it's
fun.
frozen you.
Yeah, I've no idea what's gone on there. I'll just muddle through. And that's always quite nice because we've had people that have come down from London and spoken to our kind of little audience. But equally, we've had lots of people that it's been their first talk. It's been their first thing that they've done in the community space, and they would not have necessarily had that opportunity. So, like I say, I don't want more from the existing people.
You
What
just
I
want more people.
want is more people.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what? It's funny you say that because obviously we obviously run meetups as well, and um, very much same as you guys. Obviously, you guys obviously just do it down south, and um, yeah, we sort of do it primarily sort of within London, Manchester, and a few in Birmingham. Where surprisingly the tech scene's not great, but again, Oh, I think I lost you, John. Oh, oh, you're back. I lost you.
I'm like, oh, here we go. And then, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Uh,
like I was saying, John. So what I'm trying to say is, I think it's great that I think we've got the same, I guess, mindset in the sense of we need more people. But I was trying to say, like, we do meetups across like London, Manchester, and we've done a few in Birmingham. But I'll give like Birmingham as an example. I live in Birmingham, but the tech community in Birmingham, I think it's terrible. Like, to be completely honest, and I definitely think it's not because there's a lack of talent. There's talent, but people don't want to be involved within the community. And I think I think it's such a wrong way of thinking within tech because it's so like they, it's almost like people in Birmingham. I don't want to just like slay Birmingham, but it's almost like they do their job and that's it. But you're not really like helping the town or like the city grow in that sense. Like you're not doing something that could actually push for more opportunities and even for some companies to say, you know what, um there's a lot of voice happening in say Birmingham. Let's have an office in Birmingham. Like there's not a lot of that happening, and I feel like it's that there's not a lot of opportunities that is pushing like I guess tech in Birmingham. Whereas, for instance, I used to do Manchester, like Northwest market. That used to be my market, and I absolutely love them. Like I love Northwest, and I think that's always like there's a meetup area up there that is always very very good. As well as London, right? I feel like that is just there, and then Birmingham in the middle is just like, yeah, we don't need to do it. It's fine. It's really it's really strange in that part, but I feel
Yeah,
like
I mean, what
yeah.
the places tend to need is a person, people, group of people, maybe a small firm to kind of champion the area. That's a thing that we've got down in Brighton through a tech accelerator called Silicon Brighton. I was at their Christmas event last night,
Uh-huh.
driving, so it was 5 and drive on
Uh,
the AFs
yeah.
because yeah, yeah, on the alcohol free, so that was fine. Um, but they put on their first conference this year. That was phenomenal. They support meetup groups across the city. So Brighton and Hove technically is the city, and they support 30, 35 different meetup groups, mine being one of them. But there's one for Notion, there's one for WordPress, there's
Yeah.
PHP, there's JavaScript, there's async, there's a data group, there's a Python group, there's a People and Culture Club is their official name, which is people leaders or HR in old money, and they don't like it when I say that, but that's what people sort of understand. Um, and there's all sorts of other groups that they support, and they have been kind of championing the meetup group and the tech scene in Brighton for 5 or 6 years now. And that's kind of what you need is a firm. It's a community interest company or a not-for-profit. I don't really understand their structure, but that champions and supports the area. Newcastle's got this as well. As I say, I was up there in October for the community NorthConf community conference, which is put on by a local firm called Leighton, who Lee Gilmore, AWS Hero, works for them, and they've got a decent sized staff up there, and they've got a handful of community builders on staff and all that sort of thing. And they are pushing and championing the area to the extent that they got me and a handful of AWS Heroes up from London and over from various bits of the states. I mean, Alan came over from Texas for crying out loud, to come to talk in little old Newcastle, which is it getting people into the area to do these things, talk about these things, highlights the area, and then gets people kind of out of their offices, out of their bedrooms, out of my
Yeah.
home office, out of the garage. To come and do these things and just drives the area forward because even though I'm not from that area, I
Yeah.
supported the conference. I went up there, I spent a bit of money in the area, and I kind of just drove things along a little bit. And they've now had a great first conference and hoping they'll do it again next year.
Yeah.
And I'll probably go up for it, whether I'm on the bill or not, because it was a great day.
Yeah. Do you know what it is for us? Is we've done a few in Birmingham, and I actually think the people great that come. Like honestly, like people in Birmingham, I absolutely love them. But it's I think again, it's very much like that. It's there's some companies, but I feel like it just lacks buy-in from like from our side of you, for instance, like having an like an office space or a company that could say, all right, let's collaborate and have a meetup here. There's not a lot of interest in Birmingham. It's really it's like it's they'd rather do it in other places, like say like London or whatnot, even if they've got an office in Birmingham. But I just feel like there needs to be more, I guess,
Mm.
noise in Birmingham for that to grow for sure. But I feel like we need to do a joint meetup in Brighton. I think that's what's going to happen next. We'll bring the DevOps Society. We'll bring the rally, bring the
That'd be good
crowd
fun.
over.
That'd be good fun.
Mm.
Brighton's a smallish city, so we don't have huge numbers of people turning up at our things, but they're
You'd be
reasonably
surprised.
well attended for the size of for the city. They're reasonably well attended. They're really well engaged as well, so it's always a good day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Look, just to close in sort of thoughts, I guess, on your on this um and on the podcast, I guess. What's next for you? I guess. What's is there any sort of project goals that you're excited about?
Um, yeah, I'm gonna say no, not really. As I say, I recently promoted up to principal engineer. That's happened within the last kind of month, so just
Congrats.
sort of bedding in with that level at the minute. It's not that different to what I was doing before, but it's just moving into a slightly less hands-on, bit more people managery sort of space, and that's kind of be a continuing thing for the next couple of years, in terms of the career side of things. I'm putting a lot more of my energy now, though, into things that aren't tech. I've had a really good year this year. As I say, I've spoken at two major conferences, three different user groups. But then at the end of the year, went and won a national championship in karate. So I'm putting a lot more of my time and energy into that. I should qualify, hopefully, soon if I pass my tests at the weekend, to teach it as well, which should be phenomenal fun. So I'm putting a lot more energy into that rather than the tech side of things. I do see that obviously all the community stuff that I'm doing is going to continue. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. Um, so yeah, it's kind of business as usual for me on the tech side of things, but business as usual is just a lot of business, I think. I see more of the same in the coming year. I've made good inroads, I guess is the term, into the speaking circuit, and I want to do more of that. I need to put myself out more and respond to more calls for papers, call for proposals, whatever they're actually called, TFPs, because a lot of it is just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if people say, yeah, you can come and talk to us. So I want to do more of that. I want to do more for the community, but admittedly, that's sort of business as usual for me. I do lots for the community anyway. I do user groups. We've gone from 4 this year. We're going to do 6 next year. I want to see if I can't blog more because I'm quite bad at remembering to do that. I'll do 1, 2 a year, but then I do like 45 podcast episodes. So I don't know, it comes out in the
It
wash.
balances out.
It balances, yeah. Um, I am putting more and more of my energy into not work, as I say, the whole karate thing, and that's kind of a recent revival in me. With a bit of luck, assuming I pass some tests over the next couple of weeks, I should qualify to teach it as well, which should be
Nice.
great. Yeah, it should be great fun. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do that and apply that and kind of give back to that community. Because as I say, it's all more back to the community, more back to the people that teach me and help me.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. But yeah, very much on just getting yourself out there and doing very just more of what you're doing basically, right? Just help the community and now help the karate community as well. There you go. Um, yeah, like I mentioned to you, so we'll finish off by a question from the previous guest, and then obviously you give a question for the next guest. So the question from the previous guest, which is a pretty nasty one, but how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Yeah, that is nasty, isn't it? Because it's what you end up with is just buzzwords. Is what
Yeah.
3 buzzwords are you going to pick for yourself? So I'm going to go with tired, caffeinated, but ambitious.
That's a good 3 words. I feel like that sort of corresponds quite well with like a lot of engineers. I feel like especially the first two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tired, caffeinated.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. And what's your question for the next guest?
Yeah, so I'm going to do something a bit less mean. How do you see AI impacting your industry or your job role within the next 18 months?
Awesome, awesome. Look, John, it's great to have you on this podcast. Um, yeah,
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
awesome. Thank you.